Across the galaxy, an intricate and powerful economy binds countless species together in a web of trade, technology, and shared resources. Within this vast network, ancient alien civilizations dominate, their empires stretching across solar systems and controlling industries essential to the survival of younger, less powerful species. Alien megacorporations and empires have operated for millennia, amassing unimaginable wealth and influence as they expand and exploit resources from world to world. These industries are driven by an unending demand for labor, a demand that only grows as their reach expands. It's within this galaxy-spanning machine that humanity, one of the youngest species on the galactic stage, has found its role. When humanity first entered the galactic scene, they were seen as insignificant, primitive newcomers. With few allies, limited power, and a homeworld isolated on the edge of a bustling galaxy, humans were largely ignored by the older, more established species. Yet humanity proved to be persistent, finding a foothold in the economy through labor. They filled dangerous, grueling jobs across distant mining colonies, hazardous manufacturing plants, and orbital construction stations, where they worked in shifts as long as the planetary cycles would allow. The megacorporations, long accustomed to cheap labor, found humanity a remarkably pliable workforce. These humans would accept low wages and treacherous conditions with little complaint. Soon, alien leaders across sectors saw human labor as a useful tool, one they could exploit with little concern. In these roles, humanity was treated as expendable, taking on assignments that no other species wanted. Aliens learned quickly that humans were uniquely resilient and adaptable, able to endure extremes in temperature, oxygen, and even radiation. If a mining site was considered too dangerous, it would be handed over to a human workforce. If a factory's chemicals were too volatile, humans would be assigned to maintain it. There were stories, quietly shared among humans on station docks, of workers sent into unventilated atmospheres or to mining colonies where supervisors turned a blind eye to failing life support systems. Yet humans persisted, enduring these conditions in the hopes of proving themselves, securing respect in the eyes of the galaxy's elder species, and earning a place of equality in this galactic community. But respect was the last thing humanity received. To the galaxy's corporate elite, humans were nothing more than a cheap, replaceable labor pool. Executives and their shareholders, aliens from ancient and advanced species, regarded humanity as a species that should be grateful simply to have work. They dismissed humans as primitive, lacking the intelligence and refinement of more established species, and corporate leaders crafted policies that disregarded human concerns. Complaints were ignored, and accidents were swept aside as occupational risks with no real effort to address safety. Human persistence and endurance, qualities humans hoped would earn them favor, were instead taken as proof of humanity's submission. And in the boardrooms of alien megacorporations, there was a cold arrogance. They truly believed that humanity was too weak to resist their treatment. Over time, however, tensions began to simmer. Humans started noticing that they weren't alone in their mistreatment. Other younger species, those without the wealth or influence of the older races, were often given similarly hazardous tasks and similarly inadequate pay. Quietly, among the labor camps and across human-controlled colonies, murmurs began to spread. An underground movement of shared stories and experiences began to take form, its whispers growing louder as humanity's patience wore thin. For years, they had accepted their place, silently hoping for respect that never came. Now, humanity stood on the edge of something new, a breaking point they had never anticipated. Unbeknownst to the galaxy's elites, the very labor force they took for granted was reaching a critical mass, its patience wearing dangerously thin. This growing tension went unnoticed by the galaxy's powerful. But in the quiet spaces of humanity's labor camps, in the dim glow of space stations, and within the dust and grime of distant mining colonies, a sense of resolve began to take shape. The galaxy would not notice until it was too late, but the moment was coming when humanity's patience would finally reach its end. The alien megacorporation, known as the Vortian conglomerate, had long maintained a stranglehold over the distribution of essential resources, breathable atmosphere canisters, life support technology, and critical food supplies. For years, humanity had been dependent on the conglomerate's tightly controlled supply chains to keep their far-flung colonies running. The Vortians, one of the galaxy's oldest and wealthiest civilizations, had a reputation for monopolizing resources to exert control over lesser species. They were mercilessly efficient, holding entire worlds hostage by cutting off the supplies that kept their colonies alive. For humanity, this was a daily reality, as the Vortian conglomerate wielded its influence to exploit human labor at every opportunity. But now, the Vortians saw an opportunity to push humans even further. Recognizing that humans were heavily reliant on their resources, they decided to leverage their monopoly to force humanity into harsher working conditions. With profits tightening in other sectors, the conglomerate issued an edict. All resource shipments to Earth and its human-controlled colonies would cease until human workers signed new contracts. These new terms demanded longer hours, reduced safety protections, and significant wage cuts, effectively demanding that humanity sacrifice even more in exchange for the lifelines keeping their people alive. The conglomerate's strategy was simple: starve them into submission. The decree was met with immediate shock and outrage across human colonies. Human diplomats reached out to the Vortian conglomerate, attempting to appeal to their sense of reason. Humanity's representatives argued that the proposed terms were unacceptable and would result in widespread suffering, even death, across human settlements. They pleaded for an exception, a reprieve, or even a renegotiation of the terms. They emphasized humanity's contributions to the galaxy, stressing that such harsh demands would not only cripple the human workforce, but destabilize countless industries that relied on human labor. The Vortian response was swift and brutal. Alien executives scoffed at humanity's appeals, dismissing them with barely veiled contempt. "You are a labor force," one Vortian representative sneered during a diplomatic meeting. "Nothing more. Accept the terms, or we will find others willing to work." These words were followed by threats, as they assured human diplomats that any protests or resistance would be ignored. To the Vortians, humans were a disposable resource, easily replaceable and undeserving of any special consideration. They saw humanity's endurance and patience as submission, a willingness to bend and bear any weight for survival. Now, they believed humans would yield once again. This open disdain, combined with the heartless demands, ignited a flame within the human community, a long-suppressed anger that began to burn through their patience. Across colonies and space stations, human workers began to rally, holding meetings and sharing their outrage. For the first time, that quiet patience humanity had shown for years snapped. Public outcries spread like wildfire across human communities, with citizens openly declaring that they would not be broken by the Vortians' threats. Human leaders and representatives gathered to discuss their next steps, realizing that the time for negotiation was over. Through covert channels, humans from different colonies, industries, and outposts began communicating and organizing. Key figures emerged, guiding the collective anger into a single, focused objective. They would strike. No more work, no more compliance. A galaxy-wide labor strike was planned in secret, set to paralyze the industries that depended on human labor. Every human-run operation would cease, from mining colonies in distant asteroid belts to manufacturing plants in industrial stations. The decision was unanimous, a powerful statement that humanity would no longer bend to survive. With this single act, humanity would defy the powerful forces that had treated them as nothing more than tools. The Vortians believed humanity's patience was infinite, but they were about to learn the truth. Humanity's endurance was a choice, and when pushed too far, they would retaliate in ways that would shake the galaxy to its core. The strike hit the galaxy like a shockwave, a silent yet powerful movement as human workers across the stars withdrew from their posts. It happened overnight, an act of defiance that left factories, mines, and vital facilities suddenly empty. Alien overseers and managers stood in shock as their operations ground to a halt. Human-run mining colonies fell silent, their heavy machinery lying dormant. Massive manufacturing plants ceased production as conveyors stopped, and the hum of robotic assembly lines faded. Spaceports across countless systems saw their logistics gridlock as human workers left, stranding vessels, cargo, and supplies without support. As the hours passed, the scale of the impact became undeniable. Industries across the galaxy that had relied on human labor began to falter. Mining output plummeted, creating a ripple effect that disrupted everything from starship construction to energy production. On agricultural planets, food processing plants fell behind as human workers were no longer present to handle the intricate tasks. Alien corporations began to realize that they had underestimated the human's role. While they had dismissed humanity as replaceable labor, they now found themselves scrambling to fill the roles left empty by the strike. Desperation spread among the corporations, especially within the Vortian conglomerate. Executives quickly authorized attempts to hire replacements from other species, seeking out labor forces they had previously ignored or bypassed. The conglomerate turned to younger species, hoping they would fill the gaps left by humans. However, these new workers were either unwilling to endure the hazardous conditions humans had tolerated or simply couldn't match the efficiency humans brought to their tasks. Alien workers balked at the risks that humans had quietly endured, and production suffered further as the lack of skilled labor dragged output to a near standstill. As profits plummeted and production timelines collapsed, the panic among alien executives grew. The Vortian conglomerate, in particular, felt the pressure mount as they realized just how much they had depended on the humans they had deemed inferior. For the first time, alien elites faced the reality that humanity wasn't a mere cog in their economic machine. It was the engine driving entire sectors. Murmurs of desperation spread through the boardrooms and offices of these corporations as the myth of humans as a disposable resource began to shatter. But humanity wasn't finished yet. To ensure their demands were taken seriously, humans employed a powerful tool they had quietly developed: the production disruptor. This device, created in secrecy by human engineers, allowed them to remotely interfere with the automated production lines of the Vortian conglomerate. With a simple activation, human leaders could stop Vortian operations altogether, throwing entire production centers into chaos. The first demonstration of this disruptor was devastating. Vortian production lines stuttered and failed, causing delays that rippled through the galaxy. Other corporations, witnessing the Vortian struggle, grew fearful of humanity's newfound power. What they had dismissed as a minor uprising now revealed itself as a highly organized, technological resistance with the potential to cripple entire industries. Humanity had developed the means to stand toe-to-toe with their alien overlords, turning the galaxy's own technology against them. Alien leaders who had sneered at humanity's resilience now found themselves fearing the very species they had once regarded as harmless. As word of the strike spread, younger and similarly exploited species began to take notice. Species that had quietly endured similar exploitation now looked to humanity with a mix of admiration and curiosity, seeing in them a defiance that had seemed impossible. Humanity's strike had become more than a demand for fair treatment. It was a declaration that sent ripples of fear through the ruling class of the galaxy. No longer the quiet, compliant laborers they'd been taken for, humanity stood united, challenging the very foundation of the galactic economy. In the halls of alien power, the message was clear. Humanity's patience, long assumed to be infinite, had limits, and those limits had been reached. The galaxy watched as humanity's stand against exploitation became a movement, a force that was redefining the balance of power across the stars. The galaxy held its breath as the Vortian conglomerate and other powerful corporations finally caved, forced to meet with human representatives for high-stakes negotiations. The once untouchable megacorporations, whose influence had dictated life across countless systems, were now at the mercy of the very labor force they had sought to exploit. Under intense public scrutiny, these talks became a turning point not only for humanity but for intergalactic labor rights as a whole. Human negotiators arrived resolute and unwavering. They were not there to make deals. They were there to demand fair wages, humane working conditions, and full autonomy over human-run facilities. There would be no compromises, no acceptance of vague promises or superficial improvements. Every human in the room understood that the survival and dignity of their people depended on this moment. Devortian executives and alien leaders, initially dismissive, soon realized the gravity of the situation. If they refused to meet these terms, the galaxy's entire economy would collapse, throwing trade routes, industries, and colonies into chaos. Left with no choice, the alien leaders had to concede to humanity's demands. After days of tense and often brutal negotiations, an agreement was reached that would redefine the intergalactic economy. The alien megacorporation signed what would come to be known as the Pact of the Workers, a comprehensive labor law that established new standards not only for human labor, but for all other young, exploited species working in alien-controlled industries. This pact set out clear, enforceable rights for fair treatment, safe working conditions, and a baseline of respect for all workers, regardless of their species. Humanity's demands for dignity and equality were now written into law, marking a shift that would reshape the galaxy's labor structure for the better. As human workers resumed their roles under vastly improved conditions, their actions sent ripples through alien societies. The younger, exploited species, who had previously watched humanity with a sense of disdain, now looked to them with respect and admiration. Humans, once regarded as submissive, had shown a spine of steel that inspired other species to speak out against their own injustices. Humanity's message resonated deeply across the stars. Patience and tolerance are not signs of weakness, but choices made with restraint and purpose. And when those qualities are taken for granted, when kindness and endurance are mistaken for surrender, humans will retaliate with a force no one can ignore. The alien leaders, many of whom had sneered at humanity's supposed meekness, were now forced to reconsider their assumptions. Humanity had shown a strength that went far beyond labor. They had revealed themselves as a species with an indomitable will, capable of taking on the galaxy's most powerful entities and emerging victorious. This newfound respect for humanity rippled through the halls of power, leaving a lasting impact on the ways other species viewed not only humans, but their own place within the galaxy's power structure. The legacy of the strike, immortalized in the Pact of the Workers, became more than a safeguard against exploitation. It became a lesson etched into the history of every civilization. For generations, the story would be retold. How humanity, a species pushed to the brink, had unleashed their patience-fueled wrath and forever changed the galaxy. Alien children would grow up hearing the tale, learning of the consequences of underestimating humanity's quiet strength. And every leader, every corporate executive, would remember that humans are a force of resilience, able to bear immense burdens, but that there are limits to their patience. The Pact of the Workers became a beacon, a reminder across the stars that humans, while endlessly adaptable and patient, would only endure so much before they changed the very order of the galaxy.